So where does this conversation lead you? What's your next step? What's your first next step? So if we've had a wonderful conversation and we've analyzed things, and the result is that we haven't actually articulated or helped the other person choose from among some options what it is that they will do, then we really haven't, in a sense, allowed them to take a step further. And so when we think about creating greenhouses for one another, we want to create these places where growth, where this process of growing can occur. And we all have our own tendencies in terms of when we companion another person in a conversation. Some of us are I'm one of these persons. Some of us are really into the creating the options. You know, that's where we come alive in the conversation. You know, don't give me too many details. Let's just explore what some of the options are. Some of us are really skilled and perceptive about asking the questions about what's really going on, so the reality of their situation. And sometimes some of us are really clear about, well, what's the purpose? What's the goal? What is it that you're aiming for? And that's where we become alive in the conversation. And others of us are really focused on, okay, now what are you going to do with this? Where's this going? What are you going to do? And so we need all of those voices within a peer group in order to allow one another to have that opportunity of practice-based learning and support from one another. So this is just one of the tools that I have found useful in helping structure some of the conversation in a peer group, and allows us also to kind of move beyond some of the patterns that are named as we began.
What size should a small group ideally be?
You know, I think part of it is what the purpose is, what the covenant is that they have, because we have, for instance, worked with groups of Christian educators that are larger, like 10 or more. I would say that ideally 5 to 8. Once you get over 8, then the time just gets divided. It's much more of a challenge.
Sharing the airtime seems to be the important part there, Chris.
That's right.
You can have a large group, have a small group, but if people aren't sharing the airtime, it can feel like a very small group of one.
If it's a group where the primary focus is on sharing resources, then bigger is better. If it's a group where you're trying to develop trust and accountability and really safe space for people to process challenges, then smaller is better. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Stand up, please.
Can 2 people work as a small group?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're drawing on a different kind of experience with one another. I mean, that feels to me like a holy friendship in a way, and you're not drawing on as wide a circle. But you know what? The thing that is important is what's going to work for you in your ministry, and also to be really aware of what's working for me at this time, and if it's not continuing to work for you, then you need to explore something different. So we really encourage groups, once they're formed, to stay together, to covenant to stay together for a year. With new clergy groups, we ask them to covenant to stay together for 3 years so that they can take that significant journey together. But then at the end of a year, and my group does this every year, we revisit our covenant, and we also set out a learning agenda. And we decide, are we still together in this? Or do we want to expand the group and invite some other folks to join us?
Yeah. So it's not just about being together, it's what you do when you are together, you know.
But you can take those pieces and still do all the covenant and
oh yeah, you're saying if you had a pair, that might be more like peer coaching. You know, you're kind of coaching one another in that way.
Yeah. Yes.
I have a question. One of the pieces you said was that it's really important to have a strong facilitator. But I find it very difficult to be a facilitator and a full member of a group, especially something like this. And I can't imagine that the Synod staff has the capacity to facilitate all of our peer groups. So how do we work around that?
So our experience is that indeed you're right, that the person who is the facilitator, because that person is holding the process of the group as well as doing all the administrative, that they're a different kind of member of the group. So many of our facilitators are actually in another group where they themselves get to be a member, a full member. So they facilitate one group, they're a member of another group. I will tell you though that over time the role shifts a bit, that as a group is getting formed, much more is called upon on the facilitator, but over time the group itself, if they're disciplined and intentional, they take on some of those facilitation skills for each other so that then the facilitator over time can enter more fully. Somebody who serves as the host, who makes sure that the room is set up, that if you're having lunch together, that the lunch is prepared or ordered, who's put the coffee on and put the snacks out. And actually food is a really important part of this. We all know that. And also the groups that tend to work best in our experience are when they have the meeting in the same place all the time, so that you're not trying to find each other's place and you know how long it takes to get there and at what time of day and what the traffic is going to be like. Somebody who serves as the group administrator, who really keeps track of the agenda, who sends out the reminders to say our group meeting is coming up, this is what we said we wanted to talk about, is there anything else that people are bringing that you want to bring up? Who keeps track of the agenda, who sends out the reminders. If there are any other administrative tasks that you find that need to be done, there's somebody who's taking care of that. Somebody who's the worship leader. Some groups rotate this among the members. My group really appreciates the fact that when they show up, they get to worship and I've taken care of it. We do that almost every time. Only occasionally over the course of 8 years has someone else led the worship piece. Not because I haven't been invited to, but because they really like that. The facilitator of the conversation, so again, it's that process piece, really holding the space, making sure that the airtime is shared among everybody, and that indeed that we've developed over the course of the years some practices around how we talk with one another. For instance, during our check-in time, there are no interruptions during that check-in time. People just get to talk. And then we actually move into a time of silent prayer. And it's the person who's just spoken, the focus person, who decides, who says the amen when the prayer's over. And if they've just shared a lot of really hard stuff, sometimes that time of silent prayer can go on for a while. And then afterwards, after the check-in time, then we ask questions of clarification and the conversation grows out of that. Now, all of these functions can be taken on by more than one person, or the group itself can work on figuring out how to process the conversation. But as long as these are being held, the facilitation either resides in a person or resides in the group. These are the things that we see as being key, as the essential parts.
Did you have something, Randy?
Yeah, just a quick question about how long is a typical peer group meeting?
2 hours is too short. 2.5 to 3 hours typically. Yeah, so a full morning or a full afternoon. And if there's a meal, it's more time.
Other thoughts, questions? Yes?
Would you say something about frequency of meeting? I think in the literature there's a recommended of once a month, but there are also some groups that identify as peer groups that meet weekly, tech study groups, for example. What do you recommend about frequency?
Our experience is around groups that meet on a monthly basis, so that's what we recommend. But certainly there are some groups that meet on a weekly basis. I also know of a group that meets annually for a full week. And during that week, they together plan their preaching themes for the year. They also bring their families with them. The whole importance of meeting on a regular basis, that's how relationships of trust get formed.
Sometimes someone who's interested in being in a group thinks about who are the other people she'd like to be in a group with and gives those people a call and asks them if they'd like to be involved. And so they kind of are self-forming. Other times, there have been opportunities within a synod or whatever where people will express they're interested in a group, and some of that organizing or matching will happen at a different level. Sometimes it happens geographically because people know that getting together with clergy that are nearer to them is going to be easier for them to sustain that. Sometimes it's around a theme. You know, I'm interested in working with other urban pastors, or I'm interested in working with other pastors who are 10 years from retirement, or I'm interested in working with those people who are mid-career. So in terms of finding the group, you can do it along the need that you have, what kind of group you're looking for, and with people you know, or there can be some organizing of an interest of setting up groups that could happen among a synod office or whatever.
I wonder if this model, this peer ministry model, is a new model for our church as a whole. And if we as leaders can master this, if that's going to start changing how we think about how to relate to our congregations.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking at the picture, and it's lovely, and I imagine that in some way there's the spirit of a peer group there, but sometimes it seems like the church is more of a paper mill. And we look at the picture differently, that it's about, you know, busyness and producing.
Okay. So let's conclude our time together. And John, I'll ask you to come up.
Here's what's next.
You
A prayer by our host pastor. We eat downstairs. I interrupt you halfway through the meal for some announcements and introductions. So don't get mad at me. Thank you.
Bless the Lord, my soul.